GamingBolt presents 15 things hardcore racing fans hate about The Crew 2. In case you didn't know, Ivory Tower's The Crew 2 is out, promising vehicle shifting mechanisms with more freeform exploration and gorgeous visuals. The sequel nonetheless suffers from a number of faults. Let's take a look at 15 things hardcore racing fans hate about The Crew 2. Economy system. The Crew 2 uses two currencies, bucks and crew credits. The former is earned by competing in races and challenges. Crew credits are earned by leveling up in career mode. The problem arises with the fact that cars are priced so disproportionately from one another. Crew credits are also arguably the fastest way to progress because, surprise surprise, they can be purchased with microtransactions. Progression system. Did we mention that there's a lot of grinding involved when leveling up? There's also Icon, an in-game leveling mechanic that grants icon points for different bonuses, new loot for every 10 levels, and a new vehicle for every 100 levels up to level 600. It's one thing if a major facet of the grind can be subverted by spending real money, even though it does offer competitive advantages down the line. But coupled with a somewhat weird car pricing, the Crew 2 tends to feel more grindy than your average Forza game. Also, and this is a nitpick, but couldn't Ivory Tower come up with a better format for unlocking more activities instead of just aping Forza Horizon? Sound effects. When playing Forza Horizon or even Gran Turismo Sport, it's easy to make out the differences in some brands. The Crew 2 admittedly has a bigger task trying to offer realistic sounds across numerous vehicle types like planes, speedboats, monster trucks, etc. However, the overall sound effects in the Crew 2 lack any real impact or punch at times. It all seemingly feeds into the realism aspect where vehicles don't have to sound authentically menacing because, well, the game isn't aiming for an authentic experience. We think. Shared world features. The Crew 2's instances place up to 8 players in a lobby and want to offer a pseudo-shared world experience. Well, the final product can't even be called pseudo. While matchmaking is very much possible, you just can't randomly challenge another racer in the wild. 8 players per lobby feels small and insignificant, especially when players are spread across such a gargantuan map. There's nothing here that even remotely feels different thanks to the shared world setting. No crew versus crew. On top of not being able to challenge random players, the Crew 2 actually doesn't have any proper PvP component. Though it will be added as a free post-launch update in December, it's bizarre that a game like this doesn't have proper ways to lay down the gauntlet for other players. How many racing games have even launched in that state? Always online. Furthermore, there's not a whole lot that really justifies the Crew 2 being always online. Many races could easily be for solo play, and there isn't an end game like, say, Destiny, which really leverages having a full squad to play with consistently. Also, let's be honest, even if the focus is more on the solo player, the content that's here isn't necessarily all that wildly innovative or new. Loot system. The Crew 2 has a loot system because, well, loot is worth getting, we suppose. Unfortunately, the loot tends to remove any real joy there is to be had from collecting vehicles. After a point, garnering the best gear for each vehicle tends to just make them all perform the same. This could also be an issue with the game wanting to be an arcade racer more than a sim, but it's still annoying. Fast fave is ultimately wasted. Remember those fast vehicle switching mechanics that the Crew 2 featured so heavily in its marketing? The system is called Fast Fave, and it works well as players transition seamlessly between cars and planes at the push of an analog stick. However, it feels more like a cool little option to mess about in free roam than a fully fleshed out game mechanic. Transforming races are there, but the game in general doesn't really let your imagination run wild with the possibilities. AI and rubber banding. The AI racers are stupid, there's no two ways about it. They don't use advanced tactics and make Mario Kart 8's drivers feel like Forza Motorsport 7's Pro Drivatar setting. Even dumber is the rubber banding. AI drivers can be overtaken, but they always stay at a fixed distance behind. One mistake and they overtake you instantly, making it a slog to get back to first place. Watch this happen during the final minute of a hypercar race and try not to fling your controller through a window. While upgrading will kind of get you over this hump, it's agonizing to deal with at first. Terrible story and cutscenes. Whether you played the beta or picked up the full game, one thing is clear: the Crew 2's story is awful. The voice acting is bland and unexciting with an underwhelming script that's trying too hard to be good. Cutscenes can be super annoying, but at least they're skippable. The story as a whole feels tacked on and ultimately lazy in its approach. Poor building textures. For a game that hinges so much on a large world, there could be some really bad looking visuals in The Crew 2. Much of this is due to poor texture quality, making select buildings appear made of cardboard. Contrast this with the excellent weather effects and car design, and The Crew 2's visual direction feels even more inconsistent. Horrible animations and characters. Navigating garages and choosing vehicles is done in first person, which is fine enough. Unfortunately, it also exposes you to the horrible NPC animations and models. They look stilted and unnatural, which defeats the purpose of having a first-person perspective at all. The Crew 2 is about racing, sure, but how could it render humans so poorly? Sometimes lifeless open world. We could forgive issues like pop-in and poor textures in some places if the world didn't just feel so lifeless at times. The Crew 2 is playing around with vast amounts of space, encapsulating all of America into one map. Confusingly enough, many inhabitants appear to be missing, and any traces of their activities scrubbed clean. While other open-world racing games can feel suitably authentic and lived in, driving from place to place in The Crew 2 gets boring quick. Arcade or racing sim. So The Crew 2 doesn't have realistic damage models, nor does it offer a one-to-one recreation of the United States. Driving is clearly the most enjoyable activity, but it lacks the depth and nuance of other racing titles, and you can't make it more realistic with any customization options. That being said, the game doesn't really embrace its potentially over-the-top nature all that much either. The Crew 2 feels like it takes many aspects from both arcade and simulation games without really digging deep into their strengths. It's more confusing than anything else. Trick-based plane activities are annoying. Remember what we said about the driving is the best part. It would help if other activities like flying were great. When you're soaring through the world taking in the view through a cockpit, it can be relatively enjoyable. However, attempt any of the trick-based challenges and you'll quickly regret everything, as tricks don't properly register at times. Some races are even built on pulling off tricks within a certain time limit, so failing that becomes all the more frustrating, especially in the beginning when you're trying to get a grip on things. Variety can be nice, but only when it's executed well. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.